Welcome to the Level Up Artist Podcast. We're your hosts, Adriana M.A. and
Jackie Sanders. We are two art professionals sharing forward the advice and business lessons we have learned along our creative journeys.
we talk to artists, leaders, and art professionals that demystify the creative process and discover new ways to succeed as a career-minded artist.
If you find value in these conversations, please go ahead and subscribe. This will help other creatives like you find our podcast, and you will be notified when we drop new episodes every Tuesday. So on today's episode, we are very excited because it has been a minute since we've done a studio update. So as we enter the fall season, we thought it would be the perfect time to give you all an update on what we've been working on, a little bit more behind the scenes of projects that we've been tackling. And not only because it's the holidays right around the corner, but also because we have some additional very exciting news to share with you guys.
Yeah, so over the years, we've been sharing our knowledge through courses, in-person workshops, answering listener questions, also engaging with artists through DMs in studios and in person. So we love providing you with the resources and tools we actually use to, build our art business. So we've transformed our art community setup into curated course modules so that you can find the resources tailored to your specific needs.
Exactly. So if you head on over to levelupartist.com in our shop, you'll see a handful of brand new offerings. We still have podcast stickers and apparel, but now you can add training library resources too. So PDFs and everything that comes with those training videos. We walk you through each of the PDFs, each of the resources, and we have them grouped in ways where it covers where you are in your journey and specifically what you need. So we have one for planning and goal setting, one about sharing your story and creating a marketing strategy, one completely focused on selling more art, and one about those art business systems and sustainability practices.
Yeah, and like some of those also have like templates that are ready for you to use, checklists, all that kind of good stuff that we use in our own businesses ourselves. So head on over to levelupartist.com to check them out. And as we approach the end of the year, you can give yourself, some of these tools that can save you time in your art journey. Your future self will definitely thank you for that.
And if you're still really not sure where to start, we do also have two absolutely free PDFs that might help lead you in the right direction. So the first one is identifying where you are on your artist career path. So you'll understand what your goals are, what they should be based on what stage of your creative career that you're in. And the second one is Marketing for Artists Quick Guide. So this is where you'll create your marketing wheel to ensure that what you're posting online in your digital content is posted with a purpose, kind of building that path that will turn strangers into raving fans of your work. And again, these are the same resources and templates that both of us use in our businesses, especially as we're getting ready to wrap up the year and start setting goals for the new year. So that brings us to catching up with where exactly we are now. So let's go ahead and dive into our studio update for today. So, Adriana, what has been some of the biggest wins in your studio practice lately?
So story time for a second. So a few months ago, my mobility and painting ability was seriously impacted by two herniated discs, yay, that were affecting my spine and my dominant arm. Why couldn't it be the other one? But this actually meant that mural projects I already had underway, paintings like sculptures, etc. Everything had to go on pause. When your health is affected in a certain way, it is what it is. You can't do anything about it. So it took a village, so to speak, to get back into work. Spine specialist, chiropractor, physical therapy, mental health professionals, like it was a lot, and support from loved ones and friends. Um, so we had to implement and carry a recovery plan. It took months for it to work, But I mean, part of the biggest win with it was it allowed me to regain enough mobility to get back into art. And obviously, there were some serious questions at some point where I could barely move my arm, my painting arm. So that was like, that was really scary for a second there. But as part of that, in the last few months, I've been able to rebuild the mural momentum that I was hoping to do earlier in the year. So, with the help of several artists, Jackie included, coming out on site with me when I'm muraling, other creatives and friends, I've been able to paint murals on at least a dozen surfaces. So from smooth interior walls to interesting surfaces outdoors, including water tanks and textured cement walls. I mean, a little bit of everything. But yeah, I've been able to get back into muraling. So that's been huge. That's the how did I go from barely not being able to move, like out of the sofa or the bed, just a few months back to finishing several mural projects in the last couple of months. It's been quite the whirlwind, and I'm still wrapping my head around like how this came about and kind of where we are now, and hoping, that my spine remains as it should, so I can do a lot more murals to come. But how about you, Jackie?
Yeah, yeah. Obviously, over the past handful of months, kind of being on that journey a little bit with you and supporting it any way I can, I think has been an interesting growth for both of us. Obviously, both being on our own journeys the past few months. I've been very proud of you for like all the strength that you've exhibited during that time. Obviously, it was some very hard times, but
Yeah.
I think
Oh yeah.
as with anyone can relate when you go through those tough times, especially if there's a potential risk of like your whole world changing, it really does make you more intentional when you do get back to it. So even like the
Mhm.
excitement, I'm sure, of like painting a mural is totally different now than maybe it would have been, let's say, in January. Because before it's like, okay, grind, grind, get the next opportunity, which is exciting in itself. But when you have that intentionality and appreciation for it, it just like catapults the experience.
Yeah, it
So
does.
I've loved helping you out on different murals. Also always being conscious of our bodies and our health and our stamina on very labor intensive things like murals is always important. And a
Yep.
good reminder that we are human after all, and our health is ultimately very important. So,
Our
um,
priority.
yeah. So
Yeah.
that's been a huge win. But also for me specifically, I think one of the biggest wins that I've had actually just happened recently. A few weeks ago, I went to the Artist Thrive Summit up in Winston-Salem. This is a summit I've heard about from a couple of other artists. It actually changes locations every couple of years. And so this was the last time it was going to be in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, which is about an hour and a half away from here. So in my mind, I was like, it's never going to be more convenient for me to go, right? And I'm so, so, so thankful that I did. I think it's one of those things that as a corporate professional, the idea of continuing education and networking events and joining professional organizations is like very understood in part of the culture. And as artists, sometimes we have to like give ourselves permission and remind ourselves that that's really important too. It's important to connect with colleagues in the field, like connecting with other artists, talking to people that maybe don't do exactly what you do, but they're a art professional or a professor or in charge of this museum, and ways that you can just discuss and collaborate and have those moments of connection. So the summit itself, I think, was just my biggest win. One, me intentionally prioritizing that as something that's important, but also the event itself was really great in terms of seminars where they talked about like art case studies in other cities, mindset seminars about kind of embracing your power as an artist, and more directly applicable seminars that were focused on action items that you could use when you left. So I felt like I was really energized leaving the conference, coming back to my studio practice with that shift in mindset. Even though it was really 2 full days that I was there, I felt like it was a huge catapult with bringing clarity and focus back to my studio practice, which is especially important as we enter into the fall season and quarter four. So that was amazing. But Adriana is probably related to murals a little bit, I imagine. What have you
Always
been
murals.
working on specifically in your studio practice?
Yeah, no surprises. Murals have definitely been a much bigger focus for me this year. So, yes, so now that I've been able to add more murals to my portfolio again, thank goodness, the healing journey, whew, happened. But I can redouble my efforts with client outreach, so that's definitely a big thing for me, especially, this part of the quarter. Whether it's for the murals to happen sometime this year, which would be great, but then of course, every client, if they're operating on a fiscal year or depending on when they do their budget, some of them may happen next year, and that's fine. But it's that idea of this term, if you will, this corporate term or business term, it's that idea of building a pipeline. Where you have some folks that are interested and you're just at the initial stages, you'll have more that you're a little bit deeper and already talking about designs, and then there's those that are scheduled and ready for paint to happen. So basically building that up and using the portfolio of murals that I've already created to be able to leverage that for future opportunities. So that's a big thing that I'm focusing on or that I'm going into. It's not just about making the thing. Will eventually these murals fall in and people just like reach out and want them? Sure, but for right now, there's more of that outbound approach where I'm the one going out. There's three main ways that I'm looking at it right now, and this would apply to other versions of art, not just murals, but one of them is in person. So visiting the spaces, identifying which walls could work for a mural, meeting of the owner if they're available, and then sending a follow-up. The translation of this for other art mediums would be, if there's a gallery you're interested in or an exhibition space, it's very similar. You're going there, you're checking out the vibe, and you're seeing who's the right person to talk to about having your artwork there. So very similar. The other approach is cold emailing. So this works really well for spaces that are either far away or maybe not easily accessible, like say a doctor's office. Again, this works for other types of artwork as well if you want to exhibit there. Um, but obviously they don't know of you yet, so it may take a little bit more follow up. And then the other one is the digital marketing approach, of course. So work in progress with that one. Is it going to be more DMs? Is it going to be more, kind of doing things on LinkedIn or maybe even doing some ads? Who knows? That one's still a work in progress, but definitely that's a bigger focus of me right now is how to basically build the mural pipeline, right? In between, obviously, I'll keep working on paintings and the rest of it, but this is just to kind of set these kind of like call it like these little nuggets on the calendar and kind of spread them out. So that since they take more time to go from identifying a wall to actually painting the wall, then it's good to kind of start that work as early as possible. And then something else I'm working on a couple of paintings for supporting institutions that I believe in. So one of them is Children's Flight of Hope, and partnership with Kamana Brewing. So they're doing a special event to raise money that helps to pay for medical flights for children that need treatment. And it's Children's Flight of Hope specifically is a nonprofit that I knew of from my previous life, so to speak, in my last corporate job. So I've known about them for years and their mission. And I mean, it pulls at your heartstrings. So yeah, of course, I want to support them. And then the other one, I'm partnering with Art Givers again. I've done this before with them. Love them, run by one of our artist friends and his wife, and they're amazing. And they're teaming up with Healing Transitions, and Healing Transitions, they are a recovery center, and this artwork's going to be on display there. So very excited with both of those. I chose to do custom paintings for what the purpose is, as opposed to trying to quote unquote recycle something or give something from the inventory. I don't know. There's like a different energy when you know what it's for, and kind of like I can take some of those ideas and some of the, the love that goes behind their missions and try to incorporate that as I paint. So that's really, really special for me. Not something I do a lot of because, we all got to pay bills, you know how that goes. But when it's the right it's when it's the right institution, the right nonprofit, then yeah, I love doing that. And then lastly, another thing that, I mean, I don't say lastly, our to-do list is always like a million things. But the other big focus, I should say, it's two-pronged, that's skill development and networking. Um, like Jackie said about networking, we both love networking. I've been, doing special events like conferences or summits or things like that. I did one for clay earlier in the year. I'm planning on another one in a few months, essentially, but that one's for murals. And then been doing artist dates, like, more intentional online conversations with other artists, trying to like exchange some of the knowledge and share upcoming opportunities. So always love those. Always like to do those and want to do more. And then the development part would be on expanding my art style. So I want to allow for new materials, including spray paint, that I can use not just on murals, but also on paintings and sculptures. So I've been trying on a water-based one that I can use indoors, would look really good on sculpture. So just trying to have that mindset of, even though I've worked for years to get to a set, I guess you could call it aesthetic style or a set artistic style that I can use on different disciplines, I always want to expand it. I always want to evolve it. I don't ever want it to be a rinse and repeat situation. So anyway, so that's one of the focuses that I have as we enter the last quarter of the year, of how can I take mediums that maybe perhaps I've dabbled in before, but there was something about them that was kind of like holding me back, or I just needed more time, to work with them and get a little bit more mastery with them before I bring them into the rest of my art practice. So anyway, so that's something that's coming up, but that's enough for my side. How about you, Jackie? What have you been working on?
Man, as always, a handful of things. Kind of similar in terms of community organizations. That was a big goal for mine in 2024, was really to lean into organizations that I'm passionate about with my art. Kind of part of that, okay, I love making work, I love sharing it with the world, but what is a larger purpose that I can do to give back to others? And so as people may have seen on social media or my newsletter, I do give a percentage of my original art sales to Healing Transitions. It's a cause that I'm very passionate about. And so having a recovery center for anyone who seeks treatment for addiction or substance dependencies is very important. And so similarly, I also have partnered with art givers to have some of my paintings in their recovery facility, which is amazing. It's so fun to be able to see them placed in these spaces where these big transformations happen, and a lot of these deep conversations. So another way that I've loved being able to partner with them as an organization is they've actually are in the process of building brand new campuses. They have a women's campus and a men's campus. And as part of that, obviously needing very large donors to help support their mission. Every little bit counts. So if people are interested in becoming a donor, I highly encourage it, even if it's like a $5 automatic transfer. But I've loved being able to partner with them in terms of creating their donor signage. So essentially, when people donate at a certain level, they get, whether it's a door sign or a wall plaque. So I've been able to partner with them of actually producing those in the material that's similar to my window hanging color catchers. Obviously, being an organization I'm passionate about is a perfect fit, but also in my life before my art career, I actually worked at a corporate signage and award studio. So I created wall signs for big corporate companies. So knowing the logistics of standard sizing or text formatting, knowing the process, I used to physically produce these. Now I work with a local partner who actually produces them, but it's kind of a fun full circle moment of applying a skill set that I already have expert knowledge in and several years of experience towards a cause that I'm very passionate about. So that's been wonderful. And then the third community organization kind of coming up is Band Together. So they are a Raleigh-based organization. They have their Mighty Give Back fundraiser event in September of 2024. So it's an annual event where they fundraise money for affordable housing in our area. Obviously, another very passionate cause for me, with both of us having studios right in downtown Raleigh. We see firsthand the needs of our community, and affordable housing is definitely up on the list. So their goal is to raise over $1 million every year. And so this will actually be my first time that I am live painting at an event. So I'm a little bit nervous, but also very excited to kind of see how that could potentially play into my practice moving forward, whether hosting events like that or just participating when causes kind of tap you on your shoulder. So that'll be an event that I have coming up in September. And again, the organization's called Band Together. They're on Instagram. They have a website. So if you are in Raleigh and want to get tickets for the event, it's kind of an all evening event at Red Hat Amphitheater. They have live music, like amazing food, incredible artists, of course. And it should be a lot of fun. So I'm very excited for that. Aside from that, yeah. So that's very much like outside of my studio, but definitely still things that are in my headspace and what I'm working on. From a studio standpoint, though, we are definitely full force in quarter 4 preparation, which I I definitely think of things in kind of quarters of the year. For artists who may not think that way, really just thinking of holiday prep season, essentially. October, November, December. What are things that I wish I would have done now that I can tackle? Kind of embracing that calm before the storm feeling. Which a big thing for me is batching and preparing social media content, which we'll dive into later. But the other thing is creating some more art products. So this has been something that's top of mind for me throughout the entirety of my business. I love creating original paintings. I love creating murals, but I also really love art products, and especially products that are aligned with my brand. And so if you've listened to other episodes, I really define products as things that are relatively easy, reproducible. Maybe someone else prints it or creates it, and then it has my custom design on it. So this could be things, many artists do art prints or printing your artwork on water bottles. Or for me, I have my color catchers that hang in the window, bookmarks, stickers. And so one thing that was a big project for me that actually started in like April, and I got like 80% there and then stopped, which I feel like is very common for some artists, was creating a coloring book. So I'm putting it out there in the universe, recording it on this episode now to keep me accountable that I will finish this coloring book. Again, I'm already 80% there, but really just to encourage people to not only slow down in the moment, but also have that tactile experience. There are so many times, and this could be a coloring book for kids or adults, really. There's so many times I feel like I'm able to connect with my quote unquote non-artist friends by doing an adult coloring book, just with like some simple colored pencils, and reminding people how lovely that experience is. It can feel a little like childhood like if people are not used to drawing a picture or coloring in a worksheet. But every time I'm with other adults and they do that, they're like, wow, this is so lovely. And I'm like, yeah, I know. It's almost like making art is therapeutic and meditative. So crazy concept. And I know I'm preaching to the choir, I'm sure. So that's been a big thing from a brand standpoint, I always want to make products that don't just like look cool and are fun, which like that's a totally valid reason for wanting a water bottle or a sticker, but always wanting to be like, okay, well, what purpose does this product serve my ideal audience? Or how does this support the larger mission that I want behind my work? So I'm very excited to have that coloring book. Hopefully, by the time this episode is live, it's already at the printer and I'm maybe even have it in hand. So stay tuned for that coming up. And then finally, from a original art painting standpoint, I'm definitely going to be diving into a handful of new paintings in the next couple of months. Quarter 4, typically I don't make a ton, but I'm actually going to be repurposing old panels for the first time ever. I used to never do this, but I think now it's at that point of I have some paintings that are 4 or 5 years old that I have displayed a handful of places or I've had in my studio. And frankly, there's just not that attachment to it anymore. I did a push in terms of sharing them on social media or kind of gave them their quote unquote last chance to find new homes. But I'm kind of excited to repurpose them as the underpainting for a new painting to come. So I'm very excited about that. It feels more liberating than a hesitation to paint over them, which is I feel like I know it's a good decision. So we'll see how that goes. Again, more paintings to come. Maybe we'll be seeing them on social media. But with that, obviously, we are both moving in a million different directions, Adriana, which is no surprise. That's very typical for us. But for you, what have been some of your struggles in your studio practice?
Yeah. Well, I think the first one would be studio time. So I've said it in previous episodes too. I'm like, I was up until very recently the person that would be at the studio 6 days a week if you let me. 7 if I could swing it, but um I like being in the studio a lot. It's a safe space, it's fun, whether I'm doing admin or maybe just watching YouTube videos. Like it doesn't matter. It's just like somewhere I love to be in. But after the injury happened, I was home a lot. Well, I couldn't even drive at the time, but trying to get back into it has been a little bit challenging since painting and sculptures, which are made in the studio, haven't been as big a priority as murals, which is out and about. Then I kind of fell out of like my usual routine of when I go to the studio. So when I'm muraling, for example, because luckily a lot of the murals are not that far from the studio usually, I'm like, if you're outside, you're sweating, summer sun, like I'm not gonna go to the studio afterwards, like I need a shower and I live too far away to then come back. So, anyways, I've been trying to like find what the new balance is. I think I'm gonna start by scheduling specific days I go in. And what that's going to mean too is that as it relates to client work, there's going to be certain days that I'm going to specifically not do murals on. Is kind of how I'm going to do it. It will act kind of as a rest day for the mural world, but then also um kind of like get me back into the studio because it's super duper important anyways. I mean, admin has to be done at some point, so I might as well do it in the studio. And drafting designs for future paintings, sculptures, murals, that is something I can also do in the studio. And actually, that's normally where I used to do it. So it's kind of trying to get back into that rhythm. After all, I do pay rent, studio rent, so I need to be there. And I love interacting with the public, so I need to be there. So trying to get back into that. So more to come on that one. Another struggle slash challenge um is social media. Surprise, surprise. I know a lot of you feel this way too. So I went through a period where I was kind of a little bit resistant to it, and I've started to slowly enjoy it again. But it's hard for me to just like post and engage without getting super distracted and then going down a rabbit hole and then going, why did I just spend all this time on this when I should have been doing or could have been doing XYZ? So I do use the scheduler sometimes, and while that can put some distance from the distraction, which is what it's great for, then I feel like it puts too much distance for me to genuinely engage with collectors and friends. So it's like I could either do that, batch them, and then forget about everybody for a while and then forget to log back in because I already have stuff scheduled. Or I will go in and then instead of posting, I end up like going down rabbit holes and watching kitten videos and dancing videos. Y'all know how that goes. And or talking in DMs to people, which is awesome. I mean, that is what it's made for, right? For connecting. But then by the time I'm done, I forgot to post. So I'm like, oh, I need to find that balance. So I'm working on that. But I haven't given up on it, is what that means. Regardless, some people are like, I don't want to go back. I do want to go back. I do like it. But I'm just trying to find that balance of how I can use it intentionally in a way that feels, good. And then the other one's YouTube. You've all heard me talk about for YouTube for a while now. It's been on the wish list of coming back to it eventually. So been trying to revive it for a while. I've even painted a room in my house that is going to be the background for it. So yes, we are working on this. But the process to content, film, edit, and post, has taken a little bit longer than planned. If I'm having a long muraling session or I'm doing a lot of admin or things like that, then there's not a lot of creative bandwidth left. And honestly, I could just post kind of like, as I do things or whatever. But I do want to be intentional about it, and not just, happy posting and like do stuff just cause. So, anyways, I'm kind of like again trying to find the balance, much like social media, like where is the good stuff. So, anyways, that's that. But that does remind me, as we're talking about planning, a couple of things. So one of them is that I find helpful, and these are some of the resources, by the way, that we're going to have on the website. I want to go through the Level Up Your Year PDF that we have that we created. It has a section on planning studio work or planning for your art practice. And I'm actually going to go through that to kind of go and look at how am I going to incorporate YouTube and social media again and kind of reevaluate what kind of messaging I want to give and who it's for, right? Like, is it for other artists that I'm doing this? Is it for collectors? Is it for mural clients? Is it for galleries? Like, these are all very distinct audiences that don't necessarily overlap. And I could use different media or different channels for different folks, right? So I got to reevaluate that. So that's where I'm going to use the Level Up Your Year planning document for that and kind of go through that again. Um, Definitely as we go towards the end of the year, I feel like this is a great time to always like reevaluate your pricing and make sure it's in line. I normally do reprice at the beginning of the year or make adjustments, but it doesn't hurt before the year's over, especially if you're going to do a big holiday push. Look at your prices right now. This is a good time to do it. So we're going to have a PDF on pricing your artwork that could help you if you need any guidance with that. But I feel like this is a good time to do it if you haven't done any adjustments this year yet and you're having more demand than you have time to produce for, then you may need to up those prices a little bit before you get to the Christmas season. And then another good thing to kind of look into, and this one's a free resource that we mentioned earlier, is to look at the career path. So sometimes it's good to kind of look at the checklist that comes with each stage and be like, okay, what's one thing that I can move that will help me evolve into the next stage? So that one's one I like to review at least once a year and just kind of be like, okay, is there something in the stage that I'm in that I haven't implemented yet that I'm interested in, right? And when, super important, and this is where Level Up Your Year also comes in handy. When am I going to do it? Because just saying I wish is not enough. Artists need deadlines, as you all know, or probably need to know. So it's good to kind of look and be like, okay, let's say, something that's part of that checklist is like to reach out to a couple galleries this quarter. Then I need to schedule that out, essentially. So,
Mhm.
anyways, so I'm going to be reviewing some of those resources that we have, and we hope you guys will too, to kind of like help map out what's left of the year slash the very beginning of the year.
Yeah.
Kind of what or also decide which things did I have on my to-do list for this year that I'm actually consciously going to move and push to next year or put in the back burner until I'm ready to get back to. So,
Yeah, I think
anyways,
that's the
pushing
smart
faster.
thing. Yeah, in terms of, okay, what things am I gonna like put the gas on? What things are we
Yep,
putting the brakes on? What things like just don't align with what your goals are? Like what we thought we would want to do 8 months ago may
yep,
be very different than where we are now. Like actually, that's not something that is really something that I want to focus on, which I think a lot
yep.
of us kind of realize, okay, if I put it off for 8 months, is this really important to me? Because like you make
100%.
time for things that are very important to you. So like what does that mean? Yeah, I love that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, exactly.
I think from my struggle standpoint, studio time has also been something similarly that I've struggled with. My schedule has been shifting a little bit recently, though. So, with my schedule opening up, that will allow for a lot more studio time, which I'm excited about. But that also brings a recent struggle that I've had in terms of prioritization management, which for context, I feel like that's a huge strength of mine. Typically, I'm very much the type of person that, okay, if I have 10 things to do, I will schedule by the day in like 10 to 15 block increments to make sure I can get everything done. So I really like honed in that skill of, okay, when I'm very limited on time, how much can I get done? If you have 45 minutes, what's the top priority thing to do and do it? But with my scheduling opening up, having a little bit more free time, I feel like it's an added element of, oh, well, I have all day to do this, and then it's going to take me all day. It's kind of like I equate it to like packing for a vacation. Like packing only takes as long as you have. If you have a week, it's going to take you a week. If you have an hour, it'll take you an hour. And it'll probably be about like 90% the same as for both of them. So I'm kind of balancing that struggle now of, okay, what's the most important and what do I need to do when? Of really imposing that structure into my weekly schedule. So far, I'm still very much new in the process of it, but a solution that I have found has been really helpful for me is kind of adapting that corporate mindset into my art business. Because again, being a career minded artist, leaning on an art practice for income, it does shift your mindset when it comes to art making, business decisions, what opportunities you pursue, etc. So, really implementing, okay, this corporate department mindset into my to-do list, which I do not use a very fancy to-do list system. There are tons of digital platforms out there that people love. I've tried a few here and there, and I'm entertaining the idea of trying a more quote unquote formal system. But people laugh at me. My tried and true system is literally a Word document that I have set up, and it's just titled Rolling To-Do List with dividers that say one is Monday, one is Tuesday, one is Wednesday, and I just drag and drop things throughout the day. So it's not fancy. Suddenly Tuesday of one week becomes the Tuesday of the following week. So it kind of allows you to just always think a week ahead of time. Um, if something is a larger plan, let's say if I'm planning newsletter topics for the next 2 months, just very high level, that'll go in a new document. But it's not a fancy system. However, I recently started implementing color coding it with basically categories of quote unquote corporate departments. So I have a category for my personal stuff in terms of errands I have to run, my to do my like clean the apartment, do laundry, and workout. So that's its own category. The second one is in terms of corporate job advancement and networking. So basically non-art networking out in the community. But then the third one for my art business is all the different categories. So having things like community relations and service, The second one being operations. So these are things like admin tasks, delegating work to team members and assistants, assessing finances, that kind of thing. The third one being production and quality control, which sounds kind of funny, but that's really the art making. It's journaling, it's the concepts, it's sketching, it's making paintings, because that is the product ultimately that we're selling, and making sure that, well, my art is going to suffer if I'm not getting my studio time in, if I'm not sketching, if I'm not in that process. That, as cold as it is to sound, and it makes sense for me, maybe it'll make sense for other people, that's quality control of our product, because you're investing into the quality of it. The fourth one being proof and credibility. So as with any business, proving, oh, your audience likes your product, they respond well to it, they are purchasing. So that's a larger part of the marketing department of my business. Include social media posts, newsletters, of really providing that proof and credibility for your business, which the Marketing for Artists quick guide, that's the free PDF on our shop, was super helpful for that. I revisit that all of the time. So if you haven't checked it out, go check that out, as well as using the social media posting guide. In terms of planning content out is a big focus for me. So that's category number 4. Number 5 is inbound art opportunities. Kind of similar to what you were saying, Adriana, in terms of kind of creating that pipeline of new customers. Is, okay, pursuing, you are the one reaching out to businesses, you're the one reaching out to galleries, and kind of having them enter into your funnel of potential future clients, but doing that inbound of new opportunities, but then also outbound of deliverables. So if I have a current client like Healing Transitions donor signage, that's an ongoing partnership that I have that I need to show up for, I need to produce products for. If you are an artist that, let's say, has a retail location, with a shop where they sell your stickers or your cards or your paintings, it's, okay, let me get in contact with them, see how the inventory levels are. Do they need new products? So it's all about maintaining those relationships that you already have. So that, again, that is a very cold level of assessing in our business. It makes sense for me, which is why I thought I would share it with you all. It's really helped me not only assess my priorities on my to-do list, but I think the biggest thing for me, it's shifting that mindset of, oh, I have to do taxes again this month, or, oh, I have to place a product order online. Like, that's the stuff that you hate doing or you think is a drag. It's assessing, well, this is a very vital part of a business, to where you can't necessarily expect a company, if you think of like Nike, you can't expect their entire company to be successful if the finance department decides to just like not do their job for 3 months, And so obviously it's a very different thing being original artist, but it's more so empowering of, no, this is important. This is why this is important. So let's just knock it out and get it done so I can focus on the things that I love doing. Because ultimately we do have to wear all of these hats to have a sustainable long-term business. So we'll see how it gets me through Q3 and Q4, fingers crossed. But let me know if you guys start implementing a system similar, or if you think of your business similarly in terms of corporate departments wearing all of those different hats. I'd love to hear from you guys. You can DM me on Instagram. We can share resources together.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm like, coming from a corporate environment, I'm like, yep, that checks out. That sounds about right.
Yeah.
But we have more that we want to share with you guys. But first, we're going to we want to share more studio updates, and we're going to do our very important sustainability check-in. But first, we're going to put in a quick word from our sponsors.
This episode is brought to you by our Level Up Artist courses.
We understand that life as a modern artist can be both exciting and overwhelming. Plus, there's a lot of information out there. So what do visual artists actually need?
We've spent countless hours of trial and error, weeding through tons of information to find the gold, so you don't have to waste your time going down those endless rabbit holes.
In addition to weekly calls, we have created video course modules to cover everything from artist documents to exhibition prep, social media to technology, sales strategies, artist mindset, PDF resources, templates, and so much more.
Ready to get started? Head on over to levelupartists.com to learn more, get immediate access, and level up your career today.
Welcome back, everybody. So, first thing that we want to discuss, the update, is regarding our online presence and how we are sharing our studio practice online. Mine's going to be a really short update. Slowly getting back into social media and YouTube. So no grand plan at this point, kind of like I mentioned a little bit earlier. I want to, um, but sometimes I'm like, it's just not it's not as big of a priority right now. One of the things I mentioned earlier in the episode was a lot of my energy is going towards client acquisition, if we can call it that. So if I have to send an email to a potential client for a mural or a commission or something like that, or get on social media and post something, I'm picking the client or potential client for this kind of thing. So trying to balance that out. But Jackie, of course, out of the two of us, is the social media maven. So
Yes.
let her tell you what her update is, and maybe I can get some ideas, and you can too, on how we can tackle this, which I know is a challenge for a lot of people. It definitely is for me.
Yes, yes. I think that has been honestly top of mind for me, especially recently as my time and scheduling has really opened up. Thinking similarly to you, Adriana, is focusing on those customer acquisition, building relationships, getting new clients. But the biggest thing for me is coming from the world of social media content planning in a more corporate environment, of understanding how helpful it is to have some content already planned in advance. So for me, kind of before diving into getting those conversations going again with potential future clients, is batching social media content and newsletter content for, as crazy as it sounds, really through the end of the year to at least have options to post. So I kind of describe this as I mentioned earlier, the calm before the storm, or doing the stuff that when you're in the thick of it, busy season, whatever that is for you as an artist, what things can you do when it's a bit slower that your future self is going to thank you for? So for me, when it comes to social media content, Adriana and I were talking before we started recording, and kind of laughing about how different we are in this regard, and that I love digital marketing. I love sharing my journey online, both as an art business and helping others do the same, to where I honestly use creating social media content as my reward to myself for doing the other things that I don't want to do. So I have a few things on my to-do list for right after we record today, and then I get to reward myself with an evening of making social media content, and I am so freaking pumped about it.
You know, and I
Um,
was just telling her my reward is ice cream.
right.
That's
I mean, why not both? Why not both?
but both. Yeah, maybe that's the way to do it. Eat ice
Yeah,
cream while doing social media content.
there
Okay,
you go.
now we may be onto something.
Which kind of ties in perfectly because for our listeners and for what I'll be using to guide, a big thing that I've been thinking about is when planning that content ahead of time is really thinking about, okay, what's the identity and like brand of your business? So for me personally, when I'm batching content in the studio, and by batching content, I mean I'm taking a handful of pictures that I can post really at any point. Maybe writing captions that can be posted at any point. When I'm like, oh, I need to post on social media today, but I don't know what to post. Oh, here's a handful of pictures that have never been posted before. Here are captions, ideas, quotes that are aligned with your artwork along with your brand that makes sense for you to post. So that way it takes the guesswork out of it. And I find if I'm in the picture taking mindset or the caption writing mindset, it's a lot easier to do all of them at one time. Because when I'm in art making mode, it's a very different headspace than social media mode. And so I'll be using things such as our social media posting guide that's available in our resource library to guide those conversations, but really having things like quote and inspiration, whether it's from other podcasts, whether it's from books, whether it's from journal entries, that's a huge part of my art brand and my art process that I want to share with a future collector of my work, which is always the lens that I look through the content that I'm making is what would my future collector want to know about what I'm working on right now or what I'm doing right now. And always asking yourself, like, so what? So what that you're doing this in your studio? What about this quote connects with your larger artwork and art practice? So batching things such as the quotes, having things that I document, such as colorful moments throughout the day, whether it's nature, whether it's sunrise, whether it's colorful food. If any of you have met me in person or seen me on social media, you know, those are like very kind of pillars to my life in general, and therefore also to my art. And of course, capturing behind the scenes of my studio practice and highlighting current or past projects. So from a sharing your journey standpoint, I'm really focused on capturing those in both images, video content, and planning ahead for the future for when we're in the middle of Q4 and things are super overwhelming and you have one art market this weekend and then holiday plans and then family gatherings and friend gatherings and your mind just kind of goes crazy. And then all of a sudden you wake up and it's been 3 weeks later and you're like, what just happened? That's what we're preparing for right now, because there are also things that I and the collective we as artists, we know what's going to happen, right? So like having, for example, First Fridays are something that we as artists at ArtSpace have every single month. I know every single month we're going to have First Friday and I'm going to want to post about it on social media. So to take a future thing off my calendar, let's say the Wednesday before the first Friday for every single month till the end of the year, I can already have a caption written out, an image taken and scheduled into an online scheduler so that if I get quote unquote too busy to post, I already have it taken care of. And of course, my artwork may evolve in the next 3 to 4 months. So I may want to use a different picture, or I might say, ooh, I want to highlight this brand new piece that I just made. Then I can edit the caption, but at least then you're starting from one, the post could go live and it's still good enough, so to speak, or the post is already 80% done. You just have to swap out a picture, call it a day, and then you're like, great, I've already posted about it. Especially when you think about Q4 promotions that you might be running. So whether you're at a market, whether you're doing a special, whether you're offering a specific product for a limited time for the holiday season, maybe it's a holiday themed ornaments or little Christmas trees or whatever it may be, you're going to want to be posting about that on a regular basis. So now is the time. Again, it sounds crazy that it's only September, but now is the time that you can be posting or scheduling out, okay, 10 different social media captions and take 10 different pictures of that art product and schedule them so that even if you do nothing else, you know that once a week you're going to have a post about that thing that's important to your business, right? Because hopefully you're going to be so busy with the success of this product launch that you're just going to be filling orders left and right and people won't stop talking to you about it, that you might forget to post on social media. But if you already have it scheduled in advance, it takes the work out for you. So really embracing the calm is the theme of the my social presence and online presence right now. And that's the same thing with newsletters too. Even if I don't have every single newsletter written between now and the end of the year, maybe I say, okay, here's the general topic for my weekly newsletter. Or if you do monthly newsletters, okay, what are the bullet points of things that you don't want to forget to mention? Whether it's, again, holiday releases, special packages, events. So just creating that plan of when you sit down to write your October newsletter and you all of a sudden are like, I suddenly forgot everything that's important in my business. You already have a bulleted list of, oh, yeah, I did want to talk about that. Oh, yeah, I have this event coming up. Oh, right, I want to remind people to get their holiday shopping done early. Great. And that basically becomes that like checklist for your future self. In case they get overwhelmed. So those are the things that I will be sharing online. It's a lot of preparation, but again, I want to make sure that we share that social media posting guide that's on our shop, as well as the marketing guide to help you really plan out how you're showing up, where you're showing up, and what you're sharing to make sure that it's intentional during this season, because it can be very easy to get stressed out and overwhelmed and have overanalysis paralysis and then end up doing nothing. And then it's kind of that roller coaster of then the holidays are over and you regret doing nothing, but you're also trying to set goals for the new year. And it's just that whirlwind. So set yourself up for success now. Also, managing your own expectations on, all right, this is the minimum of what I want to do. If I do more than that, great. But I'm only expecting myself to do this. Maybe it's post twice a week. Maybe it's send one newsletter a month. If you end up sending two in a month, great. You can buy yourself ice cream and celebrate, and it's a good month. But setting expectations of what is sustainable is also very important. So with that, I am going to do the very well needed sustainability check-in as we wrap up today's episode. So Adriana, from a sustainability standpoint, how are you doing with your current projects, art practice, all the things?
Yeah, so um part of the focus for me sustainability wise is going to be trying to find the balance between my different art practices. So murals are definitely a lot more physical than my paintings and even my sculpture. But it's kind of tempting because murals, there's kind of like this feast or famine kind of mindset that can kind of creep around of like, no, we need to do all of them now and we really enjoy it, so we got to do it. But I need to find where to put pauses in it and do my other practices as well, which I love just as much. It's just trying to find while I rest from this one, which is way more physical, I need more mental space for these other things and then the time to execute them as well. So trying to find that. Plus, I don't want to overdo it with the physical work that comes with murals. I don't want the injury to flare up again and then get in the
Mm.
way of any artwork, period. And then the other thing that I'm kind of looking at is as the weather cools down, I'm actually looking forward to going back to visiting local parks and gardens that have inspired much of my existing work over the last few years, anyways. I think they'll give me a good time to rest, recharge energies, and then, of course, refuel the actual creative energy with more visual cues, since a lot of it is nature inspired, that then can manifest itself through the rest of my work with whichever discipline I'm going to express that through. So it's a lot of kind of like taking time to just say like yes, like going 500 miles per hour is one thing and it's exciting and dopamine and everything else, but um it's also the don't overdo it. Like you gotta find a healthy pace to do it at, and kind of remember
Absolutely.
that health is wealth, like the saying goes. And if your health is at risk, then I mean, so is your art and your art business. So you got to try to find the balance between the two. So that's a big, big goal, for sure. Always work in progress. How about you, Jackie?
Yes, health is very important for me. I've actually been very consistent with my physical health recently, which I'm very proud of myself for. So gonna pat myself on the back. I've recommitted to like 6 days a week of working out, which obviously feels great physically, but most importantly has been so good and pivotal for my mindset. I've actually incorporated running back into my routine, which I used to hate running. I wouldn't necessarily say I love running now, but again, from a mindset standpoint, it has been super, super helpful with getting grounded in my own thoughts. It actually is kind of like a meditative, weirdly form of rest for me. Not that again, it's like physically restful, but I think there is something to be said about having active rest. And maybe we should have a whole episode about different forms of rest, because there is definitely a difference between passive rest and active rest. And so for me, if I'm really trying to unpack a problem in my head, if I go on a run or go work out, obviously physically, I'm exerting myself, but that's where those breakthrough moments of clarity come for me. To if I'm like trying to solve something in a painting, if I go do a gym workout, I'm like stopping mid workout to like draw sketches on my phone to bring back to the studio, or I'll be like typing out like a quote or a journal entry that I'm like, oh, okay, like it like unlocks something in my brain. So from a sustainability check-in, I'm very excited about having those be consistent in my routine, bringing back the early mornings again. So there's hopefully a lot of colorful sunrise content coming your guys' way, because this is also a big season of change for me, with a big shift in my weekly routine. There's a lot of variables up in the air, which I'm intentionally vague about it on this episode. I will update everyone when we make some decisions on changes of life. But I feel like I just got out of a season of rest and I'm like about to put my foot on the gas, which is very, very exciting. I feel like it's that good timing in terms of the end of the year, gaining momentum, having new painting ideas, mural ideas, product ideas, partnerships that I want to dive into, potentially new services to offer small business owners and artists, especially when it comes to marketing and social media. So stay tuned for those. Like, I feel like it's just that perfect way to end the summer, enter into the fall season, and really gain momentum going into the end of the year. So I'm very excited for what's ahead. It's going to be a big season of change, but ultimately, I think for the better. We'll see.
Yeah, for sure. Well, that wraps up our updates for now. Obviously, stay tuned. In future episodes, we'll have a few more updates, and then, of course, we'll try to do some of those through social media. So we'll see. But yeah, thank you for tuning in, and we hope you enjoyed today's episode.
As always, our blog will be linked in today's show notes, where you'll find episode notes and links to all of our other podcast episodes.
And if you want to stay connected with us in between episodes, share your feedback, or have a question you would like for us to answer on the podcast, you can reach us through social media. I'm at Mayart across all platforms.
And I'm at J Sanders Studio across all platforms. And if you want to follow the podcast, we're at Level Up Artist on Instagram.
You can also visit levelupartist.com to get immediate access to template, resources, and course modules to level up your creative career today.
Thank you so much for listening. We'll talk to you next week.